Hello, and welcome to On Leading with Greatness. I'm Jim Salvucci. This week's installment: when your toxic boss and nightmare job compromise your mental health. One of the reasons that any person writes anything is to try to keep his own sanity together. Sean Willens. I've certainly been there. Chances are you've been there. Hell, lots of people, far too many, have been there. Some people are ashamed, but the real shame is that so many people are driven to it, that it's even a thing at all. No one should ever be subjected to such bullshit. So what's it? I'm talking about therapy and mental health treatment, but I'm not saying therapy is bullshit. Such treatment serves as a powerful and often indispensable tool in our ongoing march toward healing and self-improvement. Mental health, like physical health, is not something anyone should take for granted, and there are plenty of good and even necessary reasons to seek out treatment. No, the bullshit is that so many people must seek mental health treatment of all sorts because of their jobs. No one should have to go to therapy because their boss is a dipshit bully, their colleagues are creeps, or their whole organization is a cesspool of toxic behavior. And yet we do. I've done it more than once, and because of more than one noxious employer. In fact, one university where I worked was well known in the mental health community as a significant source of clients, what with their mass work-related depression, anxiety, and whatnot. Turns out the university president and his senior minions stood as a fountainhead of agony and anguish. I want to say up front that I'm glad to learn that so many of my colleagues at that institution were inclined to take care of themselves and prioritize their mental well-being. I'm appalled, though, that they ever had to. Would that the powers that be had sought mental health interventions themselves to cast out their own psychic demons and thereby spare us the deranged abusiveness. My question for them is, what do you think is going on if your employees need to consult a therapist because of their job? I'm sure most such employers don't know or don't care. The bosses at that university sure didn't. If they did know, they probably thought their employees weak while cowering at the very thought of auditing their own interior budget. The bottom line, I'll use that word again, it's bullshit. To be clear here, I'm all for people seeking mental health treatment for whatever reason. What offends me is that people need mental health treatment of all sorts, not just therapy, because they feel trapped in a crappy workplace. Or worse, and more commonly, they self-medicate with alcohol and other substances or otherwise abuse themselves or others due to their boss or job. They don't deserve that, nor do their families and communities. I'll use myself as an example. When I was a university dean, things grew so out of control at my institution that I fell into a maelstrom of rumination. My anxiety ran sky high, and I was in an incredibly depressed funk for years. Although my marriage remained reasonably stable, my mental state endangered that stability. In other words, my deteriorating psychic health eroded the only thing keeping me grounded. I tried mightily to get out of that hellhole, to get an administrative job elsewhere, but I struggled on the job market. Most academic administrators looking for new positions find a mentor or someone who understands the market, has connections, and can help them along. Given the dysfunction of my university, that help was utterly unavailable. Even if one of my bosses were willing to guide me, I couldn't trust them. Really, that bad. Consequently, my job search process became learn as you go, and I can tell you that the job market for university administrators can be wildly complex and unpredictably variable. Hit or miss is not the best approach unless you can stomach a lot of failure. So contributing to my general despondency were my many failures to find another job. Furthermore, the immersive dysfunction of my university, as well as my malaise, must have hung about me like a stench. I reeked of it during interviews, no doubt. I know friends and family started avoiding me. I was intolerable. If I'm being totally honest, I had very nearly lost my mind. Not a clinical diagnosis, but close enough. Somehow, my absurdly loyal and loving wife prevailed on me to see someone, and I lucked out with a fabulous therapist. She saved me, helped restore my sanity, and gave me the confidence to finally land a job and get the hell out of that, I say it again, bullshit. So why was all this necessary? Why was I losing my sanity? What higher purpose did it serve that I sacrificed my well-being for such an institution? Well, I figured I could still do a lot of good. I cared deeply about the students as well as my faculty and staff. I wanted them to be safe and do their jobs well, and I protected them as much as I could from the dysfunction. Inevitably, that choice meant I had to endure even more. Nonetheless, that's what leaders do, a role I took seriously. But what did it serve the university and senior leadership to even be like that? Why did our bosses behave like vicious beasts? Why did they see fit to undermine the very people who kept everything running, subjecting us to their endless lies, gaslighting, and egomania? Why did the University Board of Trustees allow all this bullshit to continue? I could go into much more detail, really sordid stuff suitable for lurid podcast and reality TV, but you probably wouldn't believe me. I hardly believe it myself sometimes. Sorry to be a tease, but some things are just too outlandish, however true for an essay like this. The corruption and subsequent distortion of reality became so disruptive that I and others began to doubt our very perceptions. I can say more positively that I've mined my years mired in that morass to draw lessons that inform my essays and my recent book. For those insights and many an example of how not to behave, I owe that institution and its feckless, malevolent overlords a debt of gratitude, I suppose. Still, I must hold back the juiciest stuff. Seriously, you wouldn't believe me. Then again, look at the current state of this nation and you'll get the idea. Same bullshit, different scope and scale with more acute and devastating repercussions. At least my university didn't threaten to starve people out for political gain, so far as I know. Let me put all this nonsense in perspective. Unless you're a sadistic creep trolling for cheap jollies, traumatizing your colleagues and employees serves no good purpose. Period. Spawning employee anguish is not an effective business plan. Crushing spirits seems like a poor strategy for fostering productivity. Not surprisingly, it's impossible to differentiate such behavior from bullying. It's a contemptible coward's game that may provide thrills, but at what cost? And just as high turnover signals crappy bossing, employees seeking mental health treatment en masse screams of executive-level incompetence. So let's explore an alternative approach, shall we? One true leaders can appreciate. Try this. Just let people do their job and help them do it well while minimizing or eliminating bullshit. Radical stuff, right? No, that's the leader's way. The basics, not stoking dysfunction, not traumatizing people, not feeding your own ego or stuffing your pockets, not neglecting needs or looking down on others, not reveling as others squirm. Leaders serve others in order to support a cause or institution. That's leadership in a nutshell. Everything else is, say it with me, bullshit. Do you have a sense of the mental health profile of your workplace? What would you do if you learned your team members sought mental health treatment to cope with their jobs or you? Leaders simply avoid driving their team members to the therapist, and I can help. Unlock the great leader within. Download my free resource, the Transform to Greatness Toolkit, at thegreatleadershiptoolkit.com. I look forward to hearing from you.